So initially the program started, it was a 1% annual tax. If you had a home that was classified as vacant, you had to pay 1% of the estimated value of the home per year, which is substantial.
Yeah.
And this year, 2024, it raised up to 3%. All right. Here we are again, episode 308, the real estate podcast. Thanks for tuning in. Today, Ariel and I are talking about the changes to the vacant home tax in Toronto and how it may or may not affect you and the real estate market. Enjoy.
Welcome to the Real Estate Podcast, your go-to source for raw, unfiltered stories and expert tips. Whether you're a buyer, seller, tenant, landlord, or realtor, join us as we dive into the world of real estate.
What's up, partner?
Oh, partner.
I didn't put two and two together.
He got his cowboy boots on again.
It's just the first thing that came to mind, which means...
How comfortable are those?
What, do you want to wear them? We're the same size.
No.
You don't want to put it on?
No. Although I do like the fact that it makes you like 5 inches taller.
Yeah. We're the same foot size. Just try it on.
Okay. Not right now.
Not right now. Okay.
No.
So last week we spoke about mortgage changes.
Yep.
And how that will or will not impact the market.
Yep.
Heading into 2025.
And since then, I've gotten quite a few inquiries, quite a few questions.
Well, even before that, I was getting a lot of calls, which we discussed in the podcast. So if you missed that one, listen to it because it will give you a lot of insight into where we think the market will be heading in the next couple of months, or few months anyways. And then this week, we're talking about the vacant home tax.
Actually, just before you get into that, because that's really us giving our opinion.
Yes.
And the reason I wanted to just touch on that is the sales team and I, or most of the sales team, we went to a training event.
Mm-hmm.
Richard Robbins, for those in the real estate world, it's a gentleman that owns a real estate training company, and he put on an event in Burlington. So we went. And one of the key takeaways for me was, and we've chatted about this before, how realtors will post something on Instagram, Facebook, wherever, and it's just a stat, but they don't actually talk about how there's no context, and we've said it, get in front of the green screen and do a little recording about how this might affect a buyer, a seller, the market, whatever.
Yeah.
And then I was thinking about you and I and how that's essentially what we do every week on this podcast.
That's a great point.
Is we give our opinion, and sometimes we're right, sometimes we're wrong. Sometimes you might like what we say, sometimes you might not. But that's what we do every week is we talk real estate, we give our opinions, and usually they're pretty good ones.
Well, and that can be reduced down into, back in the day when social media wasn't such a phenomenon, where there was very little context with everything. Like, the stats would come out every month for real estate sales. Real estate agents would put up sold over asking signs on their for sale signs, and there's zero context. Which bothered me to no ends. Like, I hated it because in many cases it was just nothing fantastic, nothing to brag about, right? And nothing to get excited about. Or sometimes it was really important, but nobody knew why or how or what the difference was. Yeah, so it's nice to have these conversations so people know if and how it affects them.
You want to get into your topic?
Yeah, so the vacant home tax, which applies to for those of you who don't know what it is, it's a program in the city of Toronto that's been designed to try to reduce the number of properties that are sitting vacant and in turn increase the available homes to people to buy or to rent. And it's been around for, I think it was implemented in 2022, I want to say.
Yeah, it's been a couple of years.
And there's a recent article. It was on CP24. So they were talking about some of the changes that have come into place this year and some of the changes that are going to be taking place. One of the big problems with it was that it was just poorly orchestrated. Like logistically, it was a nightmare. And there was, in 2023, there was over 100, it was like 111,000 complaints from homeowners about the program, for various reasons. A lot of it surrounding not knowing how, where, or when to be disclosing whether or not their property was considered vacant or not. And there's still over 1,000 of these requests that are being processed. And basically, if the home is unoccupied for more than 6 months, then it's classified as vacant. So what do you call it? I can't remember the term when you have a room, a condo downtown that you use as
occupancy.
No, there's a French word. I can't think of it.
Pied de terre.
Yes, that's what I'm looking for. So they're trying to make that less feasible for people. And so initially the program started, it was a 1% annual tax. If you had a home that was classified as vacant under the vacant home tax program, you had to pay 1% of the estimated value of the home per year, which is the appraised value.
Or the assessed value.
Yeah, which is substantial.
Yeah.
And this year, 2024, it raised up to 3%. The 1%, so if homes are sitting vacant for half the year.
Which happens a lot, by the way, with condos.
Yeah. Actually, I wonder if it sits vacant because they can't get a tenant, how that affects it.
Yeah, so if it's being advertised.
Right.
But it's on the market.
This is interesting now that we're talking about this.
That is a gray area, right?
Is that a way people are getting around it?
Right. And you skirt it because, it's on the market, but if you get offers and not accept them.
Right.
How do you govern that?
And then there are people, the market in Toronto for condos is not particularly good. It hasn't been for a while. There's tons. So what if you just genuinely cannot get an offer or genuinely cannot find a viable tenant?
But nobody's living there.
So how does that affect it?
Bum, bum, bum. We got to look into that.
No. For them, that is a substantial hit. They're already losing income. Plus, they're losing, $10 grand a year, whatever it equates to for them.
And you got your property taxes, your maintenance fees,
condo fees, everything. Yeah. There are though going to be there. There's plenty of condos that sit vacant by speculators. They just buy it. And there's a house near us that is on the corner of
Farmstead and Lederman, yeah.
And
it's been vacant for 13
years. And that must be somebody who I would assume bought it, has money. They don't care about the carrying costs.
You should look into that. Maybe that person's dead and didn't have an estate or...
Could be.
Who knows?
Somebody maintains it. The grass is cared for.
And property taxes must be paid on it.
Yeah. But there's a lot of that in Toronto.
Why wouldn't they rent it out at least?
I've heard stories about people buying entire floors in condominiums.
Yeah.
And just sitting on them vacant because they need they need expenses to write off too. So for them, they don't care. And at 1% cost, probably don't care still. At 3%, maybe.
Sure.
Because if they're hoping for a 10 to 15% return, a 3% gouge is pretty substantial on top of their expenses they're already incurring.
Yeah.
So for them, maybe it just all of a sudden doesn't become as lucrative.
Well, and if you think anytime I chat with, and this is probably going to happen in the lower price points, $1 million ish, average price. We're not talking $4 or $5 million homes. Although, again, what if a rich person that has multiple properties in the world globally wants to have a property, like Justin Bieber as an example, who has a property in Puslinch, which actually is his primary residence, but
But how much time does he spend there?
Exactly. And he's got
I'd be surprised if it was 6 months a year.
He's got 6 or 7 quote unquote primary residences.
Well, that's why he's in Puslinch and not Toronto.
Yeah, maybe.
Because the vacant home tax on something that he could afford there would be substantial.
Right.
And he could probably afford it, but doesn't mean that he would want to pay for it because it's a waste of money. Right. I don't know. That's how I would feel because I'm frugal.
Yes.
And I can't afford anything near that bracket anyways.
How much were those cowboy boots, by the way?
$200.
Oh, that's not bad.
US.
That's a deal.
US dollars.
Gotcha. You would probably,
You can buy cowboy boots
They're
easily $1,000.
Yeah.
$800,000.
I remember when I was in Nashville, that was 20 years ago, and I was looking at the cowboy boots and I was like, wow, that's...
Yeah, these
lot
are
of money.
just more like mainstream, not like super
I like
fancy.
the color of them.
Thanks.
Yeah, they look like, you remember mine you commented on? You're like, oh yeah, that's kind of cowboy boatish, bootish.
Yeah, bootish, yeah. My first pair, I just wanted to get something reasonable and see how I feel with them. If I wear them, then maybe invest in something nicer.
So
I guess the question is with the change. So the other change, which is less relevant to our conversation though, is they're changing the way that people are notified about the program. So people will get two automated phone calls, 2 emails, and 2 letters every year to remind them to register and declare the amount of time that the home is occupied. But what I think is more important is, do you think this program will, I mean, the whole purpose of it is to bring more houses to the market for buyers and renters. Do you think it will accomplish that?
I don't see it changing really anything, especially if interest rates come down.
Right.
So if interest rates are coming down, which they are, is that offsetting the increase on the vacancy tax that an investor that's in that position says, oh, well, I'm no different last year and this year, so I held on to it this long. I'm going to continue to hold on to it because now the prices, everybody's forecasting the prices of real estate is going to go up.
Yeah.
So why now would you all of a sudden dispose of it? Or,
right.
You know,
I don't have a number here. I think there was something in the range of 10,000. Let me just see quickly. Yeah, I don't see it offhand.
The property is considered vacant and the tax does apply if the property was not the principal residence of the owner or any permitted occupants, or was not occupied by tenants for a total of 6 months or more during the calendar year. The property was deemed, it does apply if the property was deemed vacant because the owner failed to submit a declaration of occupancy status.
So that's the problem they ran into, is
yes,
nobody knew how or when, or that they had to do it every year. That was a big thing too. So another interesting thing here, which would imply that the program's not working, is that in 2022, there was about 8,700 homes estimated as being vacant. And in 2023, there was over 10,000. That could be a combination of people not knowing what they're doing and not registering properly. But I would assume that these are estimates based on them taking that stuff into consideration. So one would assume that the vacant homes are increasing still.
Yeah, like there's some gray areas here.
I would be interested if someone's declared it or had to try to fight this and find a way around it, if they comment and let us know what they've experienced. Because we don't have to worry about it out here in Milton, in Halton, in Peel.
Well, you know, I feel sorry for owners of condos that bought even in speculation in Toronto, because you think their property taxes are higher, their land transfer taxes are higher, and now the vacancy tax on top of it, like you're getting taxed, you know, every which way.
Yeah.
And there's all these condos that aren't selling. If you do rent them out, you're at a significant loss. And they're still building a lot of condos too.
Yeah. Well, so I think it also...
And now all these immigrants, like I want to get into, we didn't chat about it last episode. I want to talk a little bit about immigration and the housing startups, because the numbers don't line up. That, you know, we talked about supply and demand. There is still more demand than there is supply, but we have all of these condos sitting vacant or on the market and nothing's happening. And when you see that in the markets like Toronto, in Vancouver, in the bigger, you know, mega cities,
yeah,
it does affect the surrounding areas in some capacity, either positively or negatively. So
Yeah.
all of it does play a factor in some way,
and
shape, or form.
It may push investors, I'm sure it has, encouraged investors to go outside of the city.
Well, that's what I mean.
Yeah.
Like we've seen more people in Milton and Guelph and Cambridge that are coming from the east end of the province of the GTA, and it's good for the outskirts. But what's happening in Toronto and Toronto also now encompasses Etobicoke as we knew it.
Yeah.
So you were right on the borderline of Mississauga.
Yeah, I still think all of these initiatives, while they will have an impact on a micro level, we'll say, with individuals, depending on their circumstances. On a macro level, looking at the industry as a whole, I don't think it'll have much of an impact. I think the biggest factor is still going to be in the long term of supply and demand. So until they can ramp up, approvals for construction and get things moving that way, make it more feasible and encourage developers to build and actually break ground, it won't have a big impact on the market.
The residential unit was actively offered to the public for sale in the taxation year for which the property is being declared. That's an exclusion. That's an exemption.
Offered for sale.
Yes.
So you list it for sale and then pull it off the market.
Yeah, as long as it was offered to the public for sale in the taxation year for which the property is being declared.
That's interesting. So that's going to skew
for
the stats.
Brand new construction. So if you have a new home, you close on it.
So in the year you close on it.
Correct. If it was listed for sale, you got an exemption.
All right, so that buys somebody.
There you go.
Yeah,
you just skirted your tax.
There's a $30,000 savings for year one. That's funny.
You guarantee there's only one photo of the exterior.
Yeah,
and you try and send them an offer, no matter what that number is.
You won't get a hold of the realtor. Yeah,
realtors in
Story
Aruba.
Of our lives. Anyways, it'll be interesting to see how that plays out. This is the first year with the increase, so we'll have to wait and see how many homes are considered vacant next year, see if it goes up or down.
So what was it, 100 and something thousand?
No, there's only there
1,100 currently.
11. No, so well, it depends on what you're referring to. There was 111,000 complaints.
Complaints,
and there are still about 1,100 being processed. There are,
but do you have the number as to how many homes are falling within the?
About 11,000.
11,000
fall under the program. So I don't know how there was 111,000 complaints
and only 11,000 being taxed.
Yeah. You should probably get an accountant if you're unfamiliar with the program.
Okay, a few stats for you. Going to shift topics real quick because I think this is also going to affect the market. So last episode, things that affect the market. This episode, things that affect the market.
To help you, we do this to help you decide what to do.
Help you understand it.
Yeah.
Help you think. Get that hamster wheel going.
That's right.
Would love some engagement. So comment and let us know if you have any thoughts or feedback.
Excuse me. I just...
You okay there, partner?
Swallowed down the wrong hole.
In recent years, Canada has seen a significant increase in immigration. So here's some numbers for you. In 2021, 401,000 new permanent residents, which was a record high in this country.
Which we break every year.
Which since then has been broken every single year. In 2022, it was 437,000. In 2023, 465,000. In 2024, projected for the end of the year, 485,000. And the target in 2030 is to bring in over 500,000 permanent residents in annually. Over 500,000 people a year
seems crazy
moving into this country.
One thing I'm hearing a lot lately, though, is they are tightening up. So I don't know how that's going to work.
Yeah, well, who knows? Who knows? Definitely, it's playing a factor in the real estate market. There was actually, I'm going to pull up that graph I was talking to you about earlier. So we all know now there's not enough supply to keep up with the demand as a whole. Due in part, like in the 80s, there wasn't that problem. Mm-hmm. There wasn't that much immigration, and they were building homes, and it was actually a buyer's market because there was more than 6 months of supply available. That's why you saw a little bit of a crash in the real estate market in the 80s, because there was too much supply. Interest rates went up because inflation was crazy, and interest rates went into the 20s.
Yeah.
Not 5-6%. But here's an interesting stat. Because we're in Milton, I thought this was interesting. And that's the average timeline for the development applications to be processed. So if you think what's happening in 2 years, 5 years, and in Milton, there's still a whole lot of undeveloped land.
Mm-hmm.
And I assure you, if you haven't been to Milton for a while, if you drive around town, there's always something popping up that you didn't recognize, new construction-wise, whether it's condos, industrial, commercial, lots of homes. Where we live, which is just south of the hospital.
Not so much commercial, like outside industrial for sure.
Industrial,
not so much commercial, retail, that sort of stuff.
Well, I sent you a message a couple of weeks ago. The Fortinos Plaza broke ground. Finally.
That's been years in the making. It was
supposed to be completed in 2021, I believe.
Yeah.
So they just broke ground. So there's some retail going, and we might get we are getting a restaurant in there, like I would sit down.
So. Oh, really?
Yeah.
Good.
Yeah. And a bunch of takeout and all kinds of stuff. Anyways, the stat I found interesting in 2022, so just 2 years ago, and this is, I guess that's just coming out of COVID time, and construction was pretty nuts during COVID and coming out of COVID and all that. But in Milton, it took 10.2 months for a developer's application to be approved by the municipality, which was the fastest time in the GTA.
Way to go, Milton.
Yeah. That was 2 years ago. Fast forward to 2024. It is now 23.3 months. So more than double the amount of time to process or approve the development's application or the developer's application, which is an increase of 13.1 months, which puts us in the worst change as a percentage. So we went from being the fastest to one of the slowest. The slowest is actually Richmond Hill, which is 33.6 months, which is the average for a development application to be approved. But it's gotten better because 2 years prior to that in Richmond Hill, it was almost 36 months, 3 years.
So I wonder if part of that is, well, there's several components to that. I think one is the number of applications has probably risen significantly, given all the construction we see happening.
Yeah.
I was chatting, I can't remember who I was chatting with recently. I was chatting with somebody who was telling me a story about how they were trying to get a permit through. Who was it? I can't remember. Anyways, the story goes, they were trying to get some work done to their house. They needed to get a permit put through. They called the town. I don't remember if it was even Milton, but they called the town. And at this point, it was after COVID, but everybody was still on this hybrid work schedule. So they were mostly working from home. And the guy was speaking with somebody at the town about the permit. But in order to make any progress, they had to get an update. He had to send the application to another department. And because he was working from home, he couldn't just walk it over to them. He had to send it by email, even though he was basically across the street. So he said, okay, well, I'll send it to them. It'll take 10 days for them to respond to an email. And versus if they were all working in the same building, he could have just walked it down to the next cubicle, handed it over, and probably had it resolved pretty quick. So, it's just ridiculous how things are going.
So the point of my immigration discussion, the expected, just looking at the exact numbers here, the expected housing starts, because that's what you look at. How many houses are expected and how many applications are in, how many applications are getting approved.
Mm-hmm.
And it's about half. That's
half of what?
The applications, half of the immigration number.
Oh, I see what you're saying. Right.
So
if 400 coming in, 200 houses.
Correct.
But you got to keep in mind.
Where are those other 200,000 people going to live?
You got to keep in mind that's individuals and individual people and individual housing units.
Okay.
So you got at least 2 people to a house. Realistically, more like 4 with immigrants in many cases, I would think.
Sometimes 10.
Sometimes 10 because they can't afford it. So that's very common that immigrants will, a couple families or several families will get together
all the time now.
Buy a big house, sell it in 3 years, buy 2 houses, sell those in 3 years, buy 4 houses. Smart.
Yeah.
So yeah, I don't know. I don't know what to say. Until these obviously change something though, increase or reduce the amount of time. They just need to encourage builders. I know a lot of builders I've spoken with that are sitting on land. They just don't want to break ground. Doesn't make sense to. It's too costly.
Well, that's been a discussion in the news lately. Is the reason that there are fewer applications to build. Like even the applications that are in, it doesn't mean it's going to end up being built.
Right.
Right. So we chatted about the cost of building right now as a per square foot cost has gone up significantly over the last 5 years.
Mm-hmm.
And now you're talking like $400 might be cheap per square foot.
Mm-hmm.
Whereas 6-7 years ago, you were talking $200, right? $250. So it's gone up quite a bit. And that would be fine if the builder had a commitment from an end user, essentially.
Right.
But if you think about building a 2,000 square foot home at $500 a square foot, that's $1 million to build the house. You need the land, which you can't find. And if you do find it, you're paying a significant penny for it.
Yeah.
And then if you're the builder, you got to make some money on it. So you've got your carrying costs, you've got your labor costs, you've got your materials, you've got all of your application and processing fees and costs that way, your municipality costs and whatnot. And you got to build in a profit.
Yeah.
So are you going to buy a brand new home at $2 million, which you could buy a resale home of similar status and quality and location for $1.3 million?
Right. I think that's why they're also pushing, that circles back to the vacant home tax, trying to find other ways to create more inventory, whether it's for rental or for purchase. The other scenario is the provincial government enforcing that municipalities have to change zoning bylaws to permit additional dwellings on the same property, assuming they meet the setback requirements. That's a big one.
Mm-hmm.
And I think we still haven't seen that really take off, but I know there are people out there that's exclusively what they're doing.
Yeah.
I think that's a huge opportunity. But the challenge is most new neighborhoods will never accommodate it because of the lot sizes. But a lot of new builders, it's also changing the dynamics of what developers are doing, because now we're seeing homes like we've talked about where they're builders are finishing basements as separate units.
I'm surprised that we haven't seen a lot of courtyard homes or whatever we're calling them.
Yeah.
Rear lane homes or.
Yeah. Just I think Oakville actually allows 4 units per lot, if I remember correctly. Most is 3. I'm pretty sure it's off Oakville you can get up to 4. So you can have like 3 in the main building plus a separate building. Anyways, will the vacant home tax change the industry? Probably not.
I don't think so.
No. But it will affect some people's bottom line.
Anything else you want to chat about? Off topic? No?
Not really. I'm feeling very bloated from eating so much Nashville hot chicken.
Oh, you went there, eh?
Yeah.
I've been craving a good, what's Dave's Hot Chicken?
Their chicken's great.
You became a fan of Dave's Hot Chicken once.
Well, just the chicken. The fries are horrible.
Well, that's because you're not eating them at the restaurant. You got it delivered, or you're taking it home.
Yeah, I don't know. Fair enough. So I'd have to try it, but I still think they're not very good.
In Nashville, did you have some better?
That's basically all I ate.
Really?
Because I'm not eating beef and stuff, pork. So I just had chicken. I had pizza, chicken, pizza and chicken.
Pizza and chicken. Well, you were only there for a few days anyway.
Yeah. That's why I didn't eat very well. Whereas before that, I was.
And next month, you're on another vacation.
November 2nd, I'm going to Dominican.
Yeah.
So again.
Celebrating your anniversary?
No. That is, my mom when her mom passed away, my grandmother, she left her with a little bit of money. And she's always wanted to take the whole family away on vacation. That's how
this is a whole family trip.
Yeah, that's how she wanted to spend
That'd be
money.
Nice.
Yeah, so she's taken 12 of us for a week to Dominican, Punta Cana. So
what resort?
Majestic Colonial.
Oh yeah,
yeah. Looks nice. I've never been.
It's been there for a while. I know some people that have been there and liked it.
Yeah, it looks good.
Punta Cana is a great.
That's where Alicia and I only really ever went for a few years.
You can't go wrong because it's a relatively short flight if you think about it.
Yeah,
the beaches are great.
Mm-hmm.
Weather is great.
Mm-hmm.
People are great. It's a bit too touristy. The first time I was in Punta Cana was in 2001.
Okay.
And stayed at the Rio Bamboo, I remember. And I like the Rio resorts, for quick getaways and if you're not looking for too high luxury, stuff. But you got the...
Rios are decent resorts.
They're okay.
Yeah, I've done one before.
Okay. The food is kind of meh. Like you can find stuff to eat, but you won't have like a wow meal there.
Right.
Anyways, at that time, there weren't all the resorts. Like it just started becoming a sun destination.
Right.
But now, like you see, like
the whole beach is lined.
You go to Pearson and they probably have like 40 flights a day to Punta Cana. Anyway.
Yeah.
That's nice.
Yeah, I'm looking forward to it. Well, Alicia told me, because she's never really done anything for herself. Like she's always just household kids, just takes care of stuff and never asks for much. So I said, what do you want to do? Like, there's got to be, what do you want to do? And she said travel. So that was our goal. So, okay, we start doing shorter, smaller trips. So that was our Banff trip, a few days in Banff, snowboarding, a few days in Nashville.
Yeah, that's great. I'm a big fan of little getaways, as you know.
Yeah.
So that's nice.
Yeah. So that's what we're doing.
Cool.
Yeah. Thanks for asking. No, you need to plan a trip. It's been a while.
Yeah. Well, the last time that Natalie and I went on a vacation was before she was pregnant. So that was in St. Lucia, which was an amazing trip. That would have been 8 years ago.
A long time.
9 years ago, 9 years ago. So I'm not going to rush anything. It'll happen when we feel good to go. And if we go.
You just got to book it though.
If we plan a trip, it's going to be something like super nice.
Yeah.
Like not a normal trip, like not going to Punta Cana or something that we've done or been, like we've been to Mexico, Cuba, all these, typical sun destinations. We haven't been to Hawaii together, which would be nice.
Mm-hmm.
But I really want to look at like European trips and things like that. Like I'd love to explore the world a little bit more. I'd love to go to Japan.
Okay, big ones.
Yeah.
Japan's good for snowboarding.
But
I would
kids
go for
are
that.
still too young for that kind of stuff. Can you imagine traveling that far with
Some people
two
do. A lot of
7-year-old
people
boys?
will
I
argue.
don't think so.
Depends on what you're doing. Well, we went on this trip with the couple from the UK that we met in Mexico a couple years ago, and they're fun to travel with. We get along really well. So we decided every 2 years we're going to go away, and we're just going to put, each couple is going to put 5 destinations in a hat, and the year before we'll draw the destination.
Oh, yeah.
So just random.
Random.
Yeah. Something fun. I feel like if you don't plan it ahead,
I would
it's
put
just
the
never
most
going to happen.
obscure.
That's a good idea.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Like Botswana.
I assume that's not really a place.
Seriously?
Is Botswana a place?
Google it. How many places can you think of?
Oh.
Anyways, all right.
I'm
Nice
actually
chatting
Googling
with
it.
you.
You too.
Okay, bye-bye.
Bye. Thanks for watching this week's episode. It turns out many of the viewers are not subscribed, so help us out. Hit that subscribe button, show some love, and we'll see you next week.